Hi, this is Jamie Magrich coming to you from my craft table today. I'd like to show how to make this card that I made. Let me scroll down and show you what we'll need. Okay, we're going to need a big shot today. We're also going to be using the Winter Woods bundle. We're going to be using the stamps. We're going to use this tree and the sentiment, and then we're going to be using some of the framelits. We're going to be using the two naked trees, the two pieces of the tree itself, the one that cuts out the little intricate pieces, and the outline one, and we're also going to be using the snowbank one. We're going to be using frost white shimmer paint, Stampin' Sponge, and a dauber, a pokey tool to poke these out of the trees out. I'm going to be using 9 of the silver of the metallic pearls, some dimensionals, some of the mini ones to go behind these little pieces of the poked out tree, and a couple of the edge ones or bigger ones for the bottom of this piece here. We're going to be needing a Post-it note. I've already cut it out because I did it for the previous one, so I'm not going to do it again. And I just cut out a circle. I used the second smallest of the layer in circles framelits, and I just cut it out of a Post-it note and also out of a piece of scrap paper. So we'll be using that. And for our card base, I opted to go the long way this time. So it is thick Whisper White. It's 4 1/4 by 11, and we'll score it at 5 1/2 and fold it in half. And then we have 2 other pieces of Whisper White. Basically, it's the other half of that card base cut in half, so they're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. One we'll cut the snowbank out of, and the other one we'll use to cut out all the pieces. We might need a piece of this depending on how well we get these to line up. Should be able to get all the pieces cut out of one 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece, but if the trees move a little bit, you might need to cut one out of this. Okay, so let me put you on pause. I'm going to put these onto this Whisper White piece, put it on my sandwich on my Big Shot, and cut it out. So my sandwich on my Big Shot is going to be the Big Shot platform, a thin die adapter, 1 cutting plate. Then I'm going to put the paper on, put all my dies on, and put another plate on top and run it through my Big Shot. I've already cut out one of the trees just so I don't have to run it through twice. And let me put you on pause and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got those all cut out. Let me take the pieces out. Put them in this little box here so that I know where they are, and I'm going to put these on this magnetic sheet over here. This is what the pokey tool's for. It helps you to pop these little pieces out. Just poke the tool into the hole and you can peel it out. Now this particular one has all these little things. I went and I folded them all up a little bit and fluffed them just a little bit. Give them a little bit of character when I make my tree. They'll get squashed, but at least then it has a little bit of oomph. In there, take these 2. make you watch me poke these out, but it came out okay. Perfect. Pop out these couple little pieces that didn't come out. Put them in the trash. There's 2 trees. This one I might not have cut out all the way. Oh, it did. Just needed a little persuading to come out, that's all. It's a little intricate in this. I used the thick paper because I just used the other half of my card base. If you used the thinner paper, it would probably come out a little easier. Alright, poke out these last few little bits. Alright, so there's my 3 trees. I'm going to put those in the box. This is scrap. And now for the snowbank, I just put this on. It's not going to be quite long enough, so you will need your snips to finish the 2 little ends. But I just put it on there, something like this, and ran it through the Big Shot. So again, I'm going to put you on pause and run it through the Big Shot. Okay, I'm back. Now, one thing I did remember that I forgot to mention is you want to make sure when you're putting this on here that you have enough room down here in this section to put your stamp in. I lucked out I did, but that's the one thing I forgot to mention. So we cut it out, and you'll see how on the ends it's not quite long enough. Since we're using the entire card front, we're not using a layer. We're just going to take our pair of snips, and we're going to just extend those lines on either side. Just extend those lines. Okay. This piece you can use for another card, or if you wanted to do another snowbank in the background, you could do that. I'm not opting to do that in this case. Okay. Now we're going to take our card base. Okay. It is, again, the long way, so it's 11.5 by 4 1/4, and we scored it at 5.5. I'm going to fold it in half, line up those corners, take our bone folder, we're done with the snips, and crease that out. Okay. Set this aside for a minute. Okay, now make sure the fold is on the correct side that you want it to open on. We're going to take our little piece that we cut out of the Post-it note. You want to make sure that one edge of it is on the sticky part so it adheres to your card, and we're going to stick that onto the front of this card. We're going to take our sponge and the Pacific Point ink, and we're going to sponge around mostly the top, but make sure you go down below where you think that snowbank will go. And this is just going to create a sky. So we're going to take our sponge, and we're going to sponge around the edges, around that circle gently so that it doesn't pull up. And if you start at the edges or start off the paper, you won't get this splotchy. Like, I was trying to keep my paper a little bit cleaner for the remaining of the video, but that's alright. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's just a sky, and the sky has clouds and different dimensions in it. I did go a little bit sideways here and there too. Okay, so we're done with that. We're going to take this off. Now we're going to line up this circle with this circle here. There's no adhesive on this. It's just putting it in place. I'm going to close this so I don't get ink all over me. And I took the all-purpose Frost White Shimmer Paint and the sponge dauber. Shook it up. And I took my dauber and I put some that on there. I did dab off a tiny little bit onto here so that it was blended out a little bit. Make sure this is lined up pretty much. And I just made this a little frosted. Didn't worry if I got the whole thing. I tried to get more on one side than the other, make it more like a crescent shape. But I did want a little bit on the whole thing. Okay, and we'll put that aside to dry for a minute. We're going to take out our tree branch and the snow hill. And we're going to add some of the frost to the snow hill. And I just sponged it on. I didn't get it super neat. My dauber's starting to wear out. It's leaving little pills on the paper. And then where the Christmas tree is going to go, I did kind of add another little shadow line here, just so there was a little bit more dimension on there. Okay, so let's put that one aside to dry, and we're going to take the top layer of the Christmas tree and we're going to sponge around the edge of it, and on each one of these little branches I'm just going to add a little bit of the shimmer. I'm not doing anything fancy, I'm just kind of sponging it on. Order some new daubers. This dauber's old and it's starting to fall apart because I didn't wash it out last time. So dry it out. Okay, now we're done with the shimmer paint. Sorry, I had a little piece of dauber in there I wanted to remove. Alright, let's put this tree aside for a minute. Sponge away. This we're done with, so we'll put that away. Alright, now on this piece, we're going to take the trees. We're going to use the gray granite ink, and we're going to sponge a tree line. Since this is a bigger stamp, I like to take the stamp pad to the stamp instead of the other way around. I get better chance of not getting ink all over the edge of my stamp. Okay, so I'm going to stamp it once. I kind of want to know where my tree line is going to be, so I don't stamp too low or too high. I think I'm going to stamp about there the first time. Going off the page. And without re-inking, I'm going to pick it up and move it over and stamp again. Okay, then I'm going to ink it again. Do another one over here. Up a little higher, not too high. I'll move it down and stamp again. And again. Okay, so that's our tree line. So we're done with this stamp. We're done with this ink. Now on this piece, we're going to stamp the sentiment right up here in this section with the Pacific Point. Tap, tap, tap. Make sure I don't have any on the edge, which I do. I always have a tendency to roll that edge for some reason. I don't know why. lighter touch. Okay, then stamp this sentiment right here in this section. Straight down. Hold it for a few seconds, especially since there's a little shimmer paint on there, and straight up. Okay. Close that. Done with the ink pads. Whoops. I'm gonna wash this stamp off. This isn't my Stampin' Up! One, it's just one I have sitting here. I don't want to get ink all over me in my project, so better to clean it off right now and then don't have to worry about it. Stampin' Up! One's packed in a box. Alright, the bottom of this, along this edge and these edges, I'm going to put dimensional bones, which is these pieces on the edge that aren't cut when they cut the dimensionals. So down here at the bottom. It's a good way to get them used. They just tear apart. You don't have to cut them. Cutting them's easier for you, that's fine. Okay, I'm going to put one down in this low part here. That's where the tree's going to go, and we want to be able to have it stand up. Okay, so this is going to go at the bottom of this card base. Take this papers off. Line it up with the bottom of your card and the edges of your card. Stick it in place. Make sure it's straight. Let's try that again. Try not to smudge it because the T over here is on shimmer and it's probably should have stamped the words before I put the shimmer paint on it. Okay, now put that aside. Please don't smear all over. Alright, now we're going to put together our tree. The back of this tree, we've puffed up all these little fluffy pieces. We want them to stay puffed up. So we're taking the little dimensionals. We're just going to put a couple little dimensionals on the back of each one of these little puffy things. Takes quite a few, but it's worth it. Adds all that dimension to the tree. Double on yourself. There you go. There. Couple more. Alright. Now we're going to take this other white piece and we're going to take off the backs of all these little dimensionals. It's the most time-consuming, tedious part. trash can. I gotta remember it's in there. Couple more. Okay, now we're going to line up this tree on the center of this one. The points at the top are going to match, but the rest of it is going to not match. So I just match that top point and then push it down. And then I'm going to go back in with my pokey tool, and I'm going to kind of curl up these things